Welcome to our channel for BR Learn English. In this video, we will take you on an enjoyable journey to learn the language through an exciting short story. Together, we will explore the basic vocabulary and sentences that will help you improve your English skills effectively and enjoyably. Sit back and get ready to immerse yourself in the world of English with our exciting story today. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive all our updates. Let's get started. The man leaned back, spread out his hands palms upward, and gave a tiny contemptuous shrug of the shoulders. Well, he said. I do not understand. You say it lights, but you will not bet. Den we forget it, yes? The boy sat quite still, staring at the bathers in the pool. Then he remembered suddenly he hadn't lighted his cigarette. He put it between his lips, cupped his hands around the lighter, and flipped the wheel. The wick lighted and burned with a small, steady, yellow flame, and the way he held his hands the wind didn't get to it at all. Could I have a light, too? I said. Gee, I'm sorry. I forgot you didn't have one. I held out my hand for the lighter, but he stood up and came over to do it for me. Thank you, I said, and he returned to his seat. You having a good time? I asked. Fine, he answered. It's pretty nice here. There was a silence then, and I could see that the little man has succeeded in disturbing the boy with his absurd proposal. He was sitting there very still, and it was obvious that a small tension was beginning to build up inside him. Then he started shifting about in his seat and rubbing his chest and stroking the back of his neck, and finally he placed both hands on his knees and began tapping his fingers against his kneecaps. Soon he was tapping with one of his feet as well. Now just let me check up on this bet of yours, he said at last. You say we go up to your room, and if I make this lighter light 10 times running, I win a Cadillac. If it misses just once, then I forfeit the little finger of my left hand. Is that right? Certainly. Dat is de bet. But I think you are afraid. What do we do if I lose? Do I have to hold my finger out while you chop it off? Oh no, that would be no good. And you might be tempted to refuse to hold it out. What I should do, I should tie one of your hands to the table before we started, and I should stand there with a knife ready to go chop the mom into your lighter mist. What year is the Cadillac? The boy asked. Excuse. I not understand. What year? How old is the Cadillac? Ah, how old? Yes, it is last year. Quite now car. But I see you are not betting man. Americans never are. The boy paused for just a moment, and he glanced first at the English girl, then at me. Yes, he said sharply. I'll bet you. Good. The little man clapped his hands together quietly. Once. Fine, he said. We do it now. And you, sir, he turned to me. You would perhaps be good enough to, what you call it, Toto referee. He had pale, almost colorless eyes with tiny bright black pupils. Well, I said, I think it's a crazy bet. I don't think I like it very much. Nor do I, said the English girl. It was the first time she'd spoken. I think it's a stupid, ridiculous bet. Are you serious about cutting off this boy's finger if he loses? I said. Certainly I am. Also about cutting off this boy's finger if he loses. I said. Certainly I am. Also about giving him Cadillac if he win. Come now. We go to my room. He stood up. You like to put on some clothes first? He said. No, the boy answered. I'll come like this. Then he turned to me. I'd consider it a favor if you'd come along and referee. All right, I said. I'll come along, but I don't like the bet. You come too, he said to the girl. You come and watch. The little man led the way back through the garden to the hotel. He was animated now and excited, and that seemed to make him bounce up higher than ever on his toes as he walked along. I live in Annex, he said. You like to see car first? Assess just here. He took us to where we could see the front driveway of the hotel, and he stopped and pointed to a sleek pale green Cadillac parked close by. Dere ski ISS. Die green von. You like? Say, that's a nice car, the boy said. All right, now we go up and see if you can win her. We followed him into the annex and up one flight of stairs. He unlocked his door, and we all trooped into what was a large, pleasant double bedroom. There was a woman's dressing gown lying across the bottom of one of the beds. First, he said, We have a little martini. The drinks were on a small table in the far corner, all ready to be mixed, and there was a shaker and ice and plenty of glasses. He began to make the martini, but meanwhile he'd rung the bell, and now there was a knock on the door and a colored maid came in. "Ah," he said, putting down the bottle of gin, taking a wallet from his pocket and pulling out a pound note. "You will do something for me now, please?" He gave the maid the pound. "You keep dat," he said. "And now we are going to play a little game in here, and I want you to go off and find for me three things. I want some nails, I want a hammer, and I want a chopping knife, a butcher's chipping knife which you can borrow from the kitchen. You can get, yes, a chopping knife." The maid opened her eyes wide and clasped her hands in front of her. "You mean a real chopping knife?" "Yes, yes, of course. Come on now, please. You can find those things surely for me." "Yes, sir, I'll try, sir. Surely I'll try to get them." And she went. The little man handed round the martinis. We stood there and sipped them, the boy with the long freckled face and the pointed nose, bare-bodied except for a pair of faded brown bathing shorts. The English girl, a large-boned, fair-haired girl wearing a pale blue bathing suit, who watched the boy over the top of her glass all the time. The little man with the colorless eyes standing there in his immaculate white suit drinking his martini and looking at the girl in her pale blue bathing dress. I didn't know what to make of it all. The man seemed serious about the bet, and he seemed serious about the business of cutting off the finger. But hell, what if the boy lost? Then we'd have to rush him to the hospital in the Cadillac that he hadn't won. That would be a fine thing. Now wouldn't that be a really fine thing? It would be a damn silly, unnecessary thing so far as I could see. "Don't you think this is rather a silly bet?" I said. "I think it's a fine bet," the boy answered. He had already downed one large martini. "I think it's a stupid, ridiculous bet," the girl said. "What'll happen if you lose?" "It won't matter. Come to think of it, I can't remember ever in my life having had any use for the little finger on my left hand. Here he is." The boy took hold of the finger. "Here he is, and he hasn't ever done a thing for me yet. So why shouldn't I bet him? I think it's a fine bet." The little man smiled and picked up the shaker and refilled our glasses. "Before we begin," he said, "I will present to the referee the key of the car." He produced a car key from his pocket and gave it to me. "The papers," he said. "The owning papers and insurance are in the pocket of the car." Then the colored maid came in again. In one hand she carried a small chopper, the kind used by butchers for chopping meat bones, and in the other a hammer and a bag of nails. "Good. You get them all. Thank you, thank you. Now you can go." He waited until the maid had closed the door. Then he put the implements on one of the beds and said, "Now we prepare ourselves, yes? And to the boy, help me, please, with this table. We carry it out a little." It was the usual kind of hotel writing desk, just a plain rectangular table about 4 feet by 3 with a blotting pad, ink, pens, and paper. They carried it out into the room away from the wall and removed the writing things. "And now," he said, "a chair." He picked up a chair and placed it beside the table. He was very brisk and very animated, like a person organizing games at a children's party. "And now the nails. I must put in the nails." He fetched the nails and he began to hammer them into the top of the table. We stood there, the boy, the girl, and I, holding martinis in out hands, watching the little man at work. We watched him hammer 2 nails into the table, about 6 inches apart. He didn't hammer them right home. He allowed a small part of each one to stick up. Then he tested them for firmness with his fingers. Anyone would think the son of a bitch had done this before, I told myself. He never hesitates. Table, nails, hammer, kitchen chopper. He knows exactly what he needs and how to arrange it. "And now," he said, "all we want is some string." He found some string. "All right, at last we are ready. Will you please to sit here at the table?" he said to the boy. The boy put his glass away and sat down. "Now place the left hand between these 2 nails. The nails are only so I can tie your hand in place." "All right, good. Now I tie your hand secure to the tables." He wound the string around the boy's wrist, then several times around the wide part of the hand, then he fastened it tight to the nails. He made a good job of it, and when he'd finished there wasn't any question about the boy being able to draw his hand away. but he could move his fingers. Now please, clench the fist, all except for the little finger. You must leave the little finger sticking out, lying on the table. Excellent, excellent. Now we are ready. With your right hand you manipulate the lighter. But one moment, please. He skipped over to the bed and picked up the chopper. He came back and stood beside the table with the chopper in his hand. We are all ready, he said. Mr. Referee, you must say to begin. The English girl was standing there in her pale blue bathing costume right behind the boy's chair. She was just standing there, not saying anything. The boy was sitting quite still, holding the lighter in his right hand, looking at the chopper. The little man was looking at me. Are you ready? I asked the boy. I'm ready. And you? To the little man. Quite ready, he said, and he lifted the chopper up in the air and held it there about 2 feet above the boy's finger. Ready to chop. The boy watched it, but he didn't flinch and his mouth didn't move at all. He merely raised his eyebrows and frowned. All right, I said. Go ahead. The boy said. Will you please count aloud the number of times I light it? Yes, I said. I'll do that. With his thumb he raised the top of the lighter, and again with the thumb he gave the wheel a sharp flick. The flint sparked and the wick caught fire and burned with a small yellow flame. 1, I called. He didn't blow the flame out. He closed the top of the lighter on it and he waited for perhaps 5 seconds before opening it again. He flicked the wheel very strongly and once more there was a small flame burning on the wick. 2. No one else said anything. The boy kept his eyes on the lighter. The little man held the chipper up in the air and he too was watching the lighter. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Obviously it was one of those lighters that worked. The fling gave a big spark and the wick was the right length. I watched the thumb snapping the top down onto the flame. Then a pause. Then the thumb raising the top once more. This was an all-thumb operation. The thumb did everything. I took a breath, ready to say 8. The thumb flicked the wheel. The flint sparked. The little flame appeared. 8, I said, and as I said it the door opened. We all turned and we saw a woman standing in the doorway, a small, black-haired woman, rather old, who stood there for about 2 seconds then rushed forward shouting, Carlos! Carlos! She grabbed his wrist, took the chopper from him, threw it on the bed, took hold of the little man by the lapels of his white suit and began shaking him very vigorously, talking to him fast and loud and fiercely all the time in some Spanish-sounding language. She shook him so fast you couldn't see him anymore. He became a faint, misty, quickly moving outline, like the spokes of a turning wheel. Then she slowed down and the little man came into view again, and she hauled him across the room and pushed him backward onto one of the beds. He sat on the edge of it blinking his eyes and testing his head to see if it would still turn on his neck. I am so sorry, the woman said. I am so terribly sorry that this should happen. She spoke almost perfect English. It is too bad, she went on. I suppose it is really my fault. For 10 minutes I leave him alone to go and have my hair washed and I come back and he is at it again. She looked sorry and deeply concerned. The boy was untying his hand from the table. The English girl and I stood there and said nothing. He is a menace, the woman said. Down where we live at home he has taken altogether 47 fingers from different people, and he has lost 11 cars. In the end they threatened to have him put away somewhere. That's why I brought him up here. We were only having a little bet, mumbled the little man from the bed. I suppose he bet you a car, the woman said. Yes, the boy answered. A Cadillac. He has no car. It's mine. And that makes it worse, she said. That he should bet you when he has nothing to bet with. I am ashamed and very sorry about it all. She seemed an awfully nice woman. Well, I said, then here's the key of your car. I put it on the table. We were only having a little bet, mumbled the little man. He hasn't anything left to bet with, the woman said. He hasn't a thing in the world. Not a thing. As a matter of fact, I myself won it all from him a long while ago. It took time, a lot of time, and it was hard work, but I won it all in the end. She looked up at the boy and she smiled, a slow, sad smile, and she came over and put out a hand to take the key from the table. I can see it now, that hand of hers. It had only one finger on it and a thumb.